Welcome back, everyone, to ABG Investor Days. My name is Henrik Hintze, and I'm an equity research analyst here at ABG. With me now, I have the chairman and CEO of Briox. Please, go ahead.
Many thanks, Henrik. We are very happy to participate at ABG's Investor Days, and we appreciate the opportunity to present Briox. As Henrik just mentioned, the ones that will present today are myself, Johan Nordqvist, who is the CEO of Briox, and also Erik Hammarberg, who is our chairman. So next slide, please. So when it comes to the outline for today's presentation, I will start by giving you a brief introduction to Briox. This will include an introduction to our business model, a little bit about the markets where we sell our product, and we'll also look at our current ARR development. Erik will then go into a bit deeper into the market opportunity and the really attractive business case we as a company are going after. And then I will try to link this market opportunity to our strategic priorities and talk a little bit about what you can expect from Briox going forward when it comes to operational focus. And then finally, Erik and I are very happy to answer any questions you have. So next slide, please. So let me start by giving you a brief introduction to Briox. We continue. I assume that most of the listeners today probably know Briox quite well, but for those of you who are new to the company, I can say that we are a SaaS company that helps the smallest businesses to digitalize and manage their business administration. We are a listed company, and you can trade Briox at Nordic Growth Market. And the product we provide is a cloud-based, user-friendly platform and mobile app, which enables small business entrepreneurs to work together with their accounting agency consultant in a smart and efficient way. And the solution is delivered as a subscription service to customers in Finland and in the Baltics. And product development and marketing is managed from our head office in Växjö in southern Sweden. And to reach these business entrepreneurs, we work with a partner strategy. And in practice, this means that we predominantly sell our solution to accounting agencies, who in turn then recommend Briox to their customers. And we currently work with more than 200 agency partners across this region. And in our joint sort of business development efforts, we have a distinct focus together with the agencies on the micro business segment, which Erik will talk a little bit more about in a second. So we can continue. And it is our very strong belief at Briox that the micro business entrepreneur should focus primarily on managing the flows and activities connected to the money going in and out of the company. And this includes sending invoices, handling payments, managing the dialogue with customers, of course, where in turn the agency consultants, on the other hand, must be given the best possible conditions to manage the accounting and provide expertise. So we believe that the agency consultant should not have to spend her time and energy managing the micro business entrepreneur's administration. So this sort of approach sets the stage for Briox's solution and product development, meaning that we try to make it possible for both these parties to focus on what they do best. Next slide, please. And as a company, we have very aggressive growth ambitions. And as most SaaS companies, our key metric to monitor this development is annual recurring revenue, ARR. And I would say that driving top-line growth is a clear priority for us at this stage in order to scale our business and to secure healthy long-term profitability. And when it comes to ARR, we've been growing steadily during 9 consecutive quarters now. And in Q1 2023, the growth rate was 52% compared to same period last year. And I would say an important contributor to this accelerated growth is that we have become, as a company, increasingly successful in signing contractual agreements with our agency partners, where they commit to managing a set number of customers in Briox. And I will talk a little bit more about this later. Please continue. And with that introduction to Briox, I'd like to hand over to Erik, who will go a little bit deeper into the big market opportunity that we're seeing in this micro business segment. Please,
Great.
Erik.
Yeah, thank you, Johan, and hello to everyone listening in today. As Johan said, the chairman of the board at Briox, and I've been so for exactly a year actually. So I was participating in the last ABG here session last year. And really what attracted me to accept this offer was a great excitement and equally a deep conviction of the market opportunity that lies ahead of Briox as a company. So happy to share some of my perspectives and thoughts about this for the next few minutes. So we can take the next slide, please. And as Johan laid out in the introduction here of this presentation, Briox really focuses on the micro business segment. And the hugely positive thing about this focus is that virtually all companies in Europe are micro businesses from a numbers perspective. 93 of all companies in Europe have fewer than 10 employees. And this is, of course, a mixed bag of freelancers, growing companies with great ambitions, maybe lifestyle businesses, or just simply entrepreneurs who prefers to work for themselves rather than for a big corporate. So it's a mixed bag. But regardless of these different motivations why they're running their companies, chances are pretty good that Briox could actually be one of their first investment in a technology to support their business plan. So the market is huge. So we can go to the next slide, please. And the thing is that a micro business is just like any other business really. It's just smaller. And that means that the needs and the business process are just the same as a big company. You have to get customers and drive sales, of course. You have to take care of these customers that you bring in. You need to make sure that you control your costs to be profitable and make an earning. And if you do have employees, at some point you better make sure to keep them happy, unless you will lose them. And in particular important for a micro business is you need to manage your cash flow. So make sure that you get more cash in than you produce cash out from the business at all times. But in summary, I mean, the needs and business process are essentially the same as for a big company, but the big difference is that they're often managed by one or maybe just a few individuals compared to the big organization that has whole teams to manage all of this. Next slide, please. So given the sheer size of the segment, 93% of all businesses in Europe, it's a little bit surprising to see how few existing SaaS and software companies that are actually supporting this community in a meaningful way. The background for most existing players and the incumbents is that they put their focus on maybe SMB, so some small companies but larger, mid-market, or the enterprise segment. And as a result, these solutions are very seldom a really good fit for the micro businesses. And why? They are often quite complex and expensive to implement. And also they have quite little interest in you as an entrepreneur because there's not so much you can afford. It needs to be an affordable price that you can pay for this. So you're not really that interesting to them either. Secondly, even if you do have the money, it's hard often to justify the business case because you're really not getting that true level of automation, which makes your life easier to reduce your cost or actually make your overall core business more successful. It's often hard to justify the business case because of the lack of automation. And thirdly, most often they are super boring and built for experts. And entrepreneurs are often generalists, good at something, but maybe not at administration, financials, and all of those things. So they are hard to deal with from a non-expert point of view. So these are some of the explanations why these solutions are not a good fit for our audience. So if you go to the next slide, please. And this is a bit worrisome, actually. A recent OECD study showed that the gap is actually increasing between small and big companies as it relates to digital transformation. And especially in this time, virtually every large corporation have quite strategic discussions on how they can use things like AI, analytics, big data to become more efficient, productive, or cut cost or be more competitive overall. The other day, we saw British Telecom announce that they're cutting 55,000 employees worldwide. Many of these roles and positions will actually be replaced by AI technology. And as this continues, these kind of investments from big corporations, there's an obvious risk that micro businesses gradually fall behind in this development, and over time will have a difficult time staying competitive to these larger companies and actually grow based on this. But if we go to the next slide, please. So we have for Briox a quite clear belief that the broader society actually gets quite a lot better by having new companies started and having those dreams fulfilled. That's the way to develop society broadly. And we want to make our small part in this in closing this gap. And there are a few things that we think are critical to help closing this gap and providing these kind of opportunities also to the community of micro businesses. The first is that UX, the user experience, that is, have to be best in class. So not because it's beautiful to look at or looks fancy or anything like that, but it's more like you need to know exactly what to do and how to do it. There couldn't be any time for training and learning something, because that's a luxury that the micro entrepreneur wouldn't have to learn a system. And secondly, the underlying technology needs to embed the latest AI technology, which means that you actually can delegate work, get a little digital coworker in your pocket or on the desktop to help you run your business. And thirdly, you need to truly help the entrepreneur in helping them with their business flows that are most critical in this phase of running a company. And that is most often keeping track of your customers, making sure that no bills or invoices are missed, that you have to pay their suppliers and partners in time, and overall managing your cash flow. Those are the critical business flows that you really need to care for as an entrepreneur, and that's where we put our focus as a company. If we jump to the next one, please. Before I hand over to you again to talk about some of our strategic priorities lying ahead, I just wanted to take the chance of introducing my crew here, my dear board members. I will not go into the resume of every individual in this group, but just happy to say that we do have a very, very strong team in place. There's a great diversity of experience across disciplines like operations, strategy, communications, different investments, which is a great asset for Johan and the team in guiding him, and as the company and the team deliver on their plan going forward. Now over to you, Johan, again to talk about the strategic priorities and what's up next.
All right, let's move on. Thank you very much, Eric, and I hope at least our excitement about this market opportunity and the playing field we're in shines through. So what can you expect from Briox going forward, and how does this link to the business opportunities that Eric has talked about? So if you continue, I'd like to point out 3 sort of strategic priorities, and I would say the most important priority is to strengthen Briox's position as the leading solution in the micro business segment. So to our agency partners, our customer promise is to offer the most efficient solution for handling micro business clients. And in practice, this means providing functionality that enables radical time saving for the agency consultants managing micro business clients. Because we think that by getting more done in less time, the agency can actually say yes to more clients, and thereby enabling a more profitable working model in this segment, which is oftentimes actually a struggle, since the willingness to pay is not huge. So it's all about efficiency and managing more with the same resources. So we will therefore continue to launch more time-saving initiatives, all aimed at strengthening Briox's position in the market. And in parallel with that, and we're quite excited about this, we will gradually focus more and more on developing the part of our product offer that is aimed directly at the micro business entrepreneur, linking to what Eric just talked about. And here our ambition is to take a leading role in enabling what we refer to as business simplification for micro entrepreneurs. And above all, this means being able to offer a brutally user-friendly solution for mobile phones. And what this means in practice in terms of functionality, I'll be able to come back to you later in the year, but I can tell you so much that we have very exciting plans in the works that we will talk more about soon. So if we continue, please. Another very important priority for us is to grow our business with our existing agency partners. As I mentioned in the beginning, we have a network already of more than 200 agency partners. We should, of course, leverage that. And as I mentioned earlier, our sales organization is increasingly successful in signing agreements with agencies that include a contractual commitment to handle a larger percentage of their customers in Briox's platform. And to get even better at this, we will continue investing in our onboarding and partner support model, because through a more systematic process to easily get started with new customers in Briox, it's possible to speed up user growth and thereby increase sales. So this is, of course, very important for us. And finally, move on. We will strengthen and adapt the organization continuously. As I mentioned, we will have a greater focus on developing the part of our solution that is aimed directly at the micro entrepreneur. And with that, it becomes sort of important to ensure the right competence within all parts of the organization. And such adaptation includes, among other things, then, of course, reinforcements in product design, more focus on content marketing, and even more focus on digital sales. And in parallel with this, we will continue to invest in our partner business, which is business critical for us and where we're having very good leverage at the moment. And just as an example, as a part of this work, we very recently recruited Truls Dahlén as Briox's Chief Revenue Officer. And Truls comes most recently from Medius, which is one of the largest SaaS companies within the B2B space in the Nordics, where he was previously Vice President of Sales and responsible for sales to accounting firms. So I'm mentioning this example just as a testimony of us being able to attract really strong talent who want to be part of this exciting journey. So that sums up sort of the essence. If you move on to what we have in the works, the business opportunity that we see, and the operational focus that I try to have together with the board and the lead team. And on that note, Eric and I would like to thank you for listening. We hope that we have triggered an increased interest to follow Briox. We are, as I mentioned, Eric and I, very excited about this business opportunity we're going after. And we hope that several of you will join us on this journey ahead. So with that, we're very happy to open up for any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much for that. Let's go ahead with some questions then. Could you elaborate a bit on the development you see in the underlying market right now and how that affects your business?
I can try to comment on that. I assume you're relating a little bit to sort of the macroeconomics and inflation and all of this. Am I right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. It's a very good question. It's, of course, something that sort of affects us and everybody else. But having said that, I would say that we haven't seen much that has affected our business negatively yet. Of course, we have to follow what happens in these, in the segments that we target. Of course, these micro business entrepreneurs, they also have, especially in some segments, they are dependent on their customers or their business doing well. And of course, in some segments, they're more vulnerable than others. But having said that, I think we're somewhat fortunate in operating in the space that where we actually provide a solution that can enable you to run your business more efficiently. So it's probably not the first investment that you let go of. And also, I think our subscription model is, it's not attached to a huge cost. So we haven't seen so much yet. But having said that, we of course have to take measures such as being very mindful about pricing, looking after cost, and ensuring that we put increased focus on delivering value. So I think it comes back to what we talked about, having a brutal focus on user experience and making sure that we are frankly relevant to both our partners and to our end users.
Thank you. The growth in the number of bureau partners you have has slowed a bit recently. Is this connected to some strategic change in how you acquire customers? Are you targeting end customers more directly, or could you give a bit of a comment on that?
Right. No, I think it's historically a measure that we've been very focused on since, as long as we have a partner strategy, of course, there should be a link between the number of partners and the business you can grow. However, we have, put more focus, I think, lately on ensuring that we work with the right partners. And we put more effort now into actually growing our market share with the agency partners that we have. So it's right that you say that if you look at the growth rate in terms of sheer numbers of partners, it slowed down a bit. But if you look at the ARR growth, it's actually going in the other way. So we're quite confident that striking a good balance between quality and quantity is the right thing to do. But having said that, we, of course, aim both at expanding over time the number of partners that we work with. But again, it needs to be the right partners that share the ambition to grow in the microbusiness segment together with us.
All right. Could you give any comment on what kind of scale your business needs to reach to achieve a satisfying level of profitability?
You want to comment on that, Eric, from a longer term perspective?
Sure. So we're not commenting obviously explicitly on forecast or giving any type of predictions. The company needs to grow into a slightly higher revenue mass in order to have that flexibility. That is definitely within sight, if I put it that way. But there needs to be a revenue mass sufficient enough to be able to have operational flexibility and really choose path. Obviously, we know there's a new climate here where profit growth is highly valued, and we definitely share that. We think that's a positive trend, to be honest, that investors value that from a business. So that's something that we are striving for, but we do still have some time before we have that level of flexibility to choose whether to invest more in the sales and marketing machine and making sure that we have well-dialed metrics in terms of sales efficiency. Then we might do that, but profitable growth is definitely something that we're striving for.
All right. And what do you think will be the main drivers of this growth? Will you seek to achieve higher penetration in the markets where you are already in, or are you going to expand to other markets? Could you just give a bit of a comment on that?
Right, I can share my perspective. First of all, I mean, for those who've been following Briox for some time, you know that we have international ambitions. That's also why we are present in several markets. Actually, as one of, I would say, relatively few players in our field with a strong international ambition. Having said that, we feel very strongly that we have to, before we sort of accelerate growth in multiple markets, we have to ensure that we have a very strong proof of concept where we are a stronghold, and that is currently in Finland. So, which is why we are investing most there. But we do this with that international expansion ambition in mind. So that is it's something that we need to balance, but it comes really down to, I think it's to have a very, very good offer to ensure what the business model that we have in place really flies, both from a go-to-market perspective and that it's something that our target audience, both the partners that we work with and the end user, really appreciates. So I think that's a nuanced answer to your straight question.
Well, thank you very much for that. That's all we have time for today. Thank you for presenting Briox for us, and thank you all for listening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.